Story 1. Hi everyone. My name is Haley, 25, and I want to tell you about my family and how my stepsister Vanessa destroyed everything I held dear. My mom, Claire, was the kindest woman in the world. I remember her vaguely because I was only 6 when she passed away. Cancer. It sounds cliché, but for my father, David, her death was the end of the world. He was a tall, strong man, a construction worker who could fix anything, but after she left, he seemed to break inside. I remember waking up at night and hearing him crying softly in the living room. He tried to stay strong for me, but for a little girl, it was terrifying. The next 5 years were a time of survival, not living. Dad worked 2 jobs to pay the bills, and for my drawing classes, the only thing that truly interested me. I learned early on how to make mac and cheese and iron my own school shirts. We weren't just father and daughter, we were a team. We had our own special ritual. Every Saturday morning we'd eat pancakes and watch old comedies. He would tell me, "Haley, you're the spitting image of your mom. Just as beautiful and just as smart. You're going to be a great person." When I was 11, Nora came into our lives. Dad met her at a hardware store. She was buying paint too, being an amateur artist. She was the complete opposite of Mom, loud, emotional, with a vibrant appearance. She was divorced and raising a daughter, Vanessa, who was 9 at the time. At first, I hated her. Not Nora, but Vanessa. She was a real little brat. She'd touch my things, come into my room without permission, and once, when we argued over the TV remote, she pushed me so hard I hit my head on the corner of the table. Nora scolded her, of course, but it was something like, "Vanessa, you can't do that. Haley, don't pout, she's just little." Dad tried his best. He wanted me to have a real family. He bought a big house so each of us could have our own room. Nora tried to be my friend, but I always felt that wall. She said, "I'll never replace your mom," and that was true. But she tried, and over time, we learned to coexist. By high school, our relationship with Vanessa had evolved into a state of armed neutrality. We lived under the same roof, but we had different friends and different interests. I was quiet, a straight-A student, into drawing and dreaming of art college. Vanessa was the social butterfly, a party girl who changed her hair color every month and changed boyfriends like gloves. After high school, I went to university in a neighboring town but lived at home to save money. Dad had become calmer by then. He'd finally allowed himself to be happy with Nora. Vanessa was also at the local community college studying marketing, but she seemed more interested in frat parties. In my junior year, when I was 20, I met Ethan. It was a pure, Hollywood script scenario. I was working as a barista at a local coffee shop to earn extra money. He walked in on a chilly autumn morning, ordered black coffee and cherry pie. He was 3 years older than me, studying to be an architect, tall, with chestnut hair and the warmest brown eyes I'd ever seen. He asked for my number, and I, blushing to the roots of my hair, wrote it on a napkin. Ethan became my first real boyfriend. Before him, I'd had only teenage crushes, but with him, everything was serious. He was attentive, caring, smart. We could walk for hours in the park, talking about art and architecture. He adored my drawings and hung one in his room. He befriended my dad. They'd go to baseball games together and could talk about tools for hours. Dad was over the moon, seeing his daughter with a normal guy. We dated for 3 years. Ethan graduated, got a prestigious job at an architectural firm designing new eco-districts in the city. I also graduated with honors and started working as a children's book illustrator, collaborating with a small publishing house. Our future seemed written in gold ink. Ethan proposed exactly 3 years into our relationship. It was on a bridge at sunset, overlooking the river. The ring was incredible. Thin platinum with a small diamond. But it was the most beautiful diamond in the world because it belonged to his grandmother. We decided the wedding would be in a year, giving us time to save money and prepare. By then, Vanessa had been living on her own for 2 years, sharing an apartment with friends. She worked at some advertising agency and, based on Nora's stories, was quite successful. At our engagement party, she showed up with a new hair color, platinum blonde, and was studying Ethan very intently. "Not bad, sis," she said, smirking. "Didn't think you could land one like that." I brushed it off. Vanessa was always like that, making snide remarks to feel better about herself. But about a month after the engagement, problems started. Vanessa lost her job. She said she was laid off due to the recession. Nora was panicking, and my dad, with his big heart, offered, "Let her stay with us for a couple of months until she finds a new job." I was against it. I had a bad feeling. But Nora looked at me with such pleading eyes, and Dad talked about family and the importance of supporting each other. Ethan, who was there when we discussed it at dinner, said, "Haley, what are you worried about? She's your sister. We're getting married soon, and everything will be fine. The more people love us, the better." I gave in. It was my biggest mistake. At first, Vanessa behaved quietly. She said she was job hunting, stayed on the internet, and sometimes helped Nora around the house. She often came into the kitchen when Ethan was there. At first, it was harmless talk about his work, or how Haley is doing. Then she started asking his advice on her resume and portfolio, even though she was a marketing major. Ethan, being kind, helped. I remember one evening coming down for water and seeing them in the backyard. They were sitting in lounge chairs, drinking wine, and laughing loudly. My heart panged, but I dismissed the thought. "Stop it, Haley," I told myself. "You're becoming that paranoid bride." But then the little things started. I noticed her perfume started smelling like the one Ethan gave me. She started wearing dresses in a similar style to mine, but more revealing. Once, she accidentally walked into the bathroom while he was showering. She apologized, but her smile was strange. I tried talking to Ethan. He looked at me like I was crazy. "Haley, she's your sister. She's just trying to fit into the family. Don't make things up. She's my stepsister," I corrected. "And she's flirting with you. You're jealous of a girl who's unemployed and living off us." He laughed. "Honey, I love only you. Don't be ridiculous." But I saw how Vanessa looked at him. It was the gaze of a predator. It all collapsed in 1 week. It was a Friday. I was preparing a surprise for Ethan. I booked us a weekend getaway to a mountain spa resort to get away from everything and be alone. I arrived at his apartment early to set things up nicely, light some candles. I had a key. I walked in and heard sounds from the bedroom. At first, I thought he was watching TV. But as I got closer, I heard her laugh. His voice. A mix of sounds that left no doubt. I opened the door. Vanessa, wearing my favorite t-shirt that belonged to Ethan, was straddling him. They were kissing. When she saw me, she wasn't scared. She smirked that smirk I'd hated since childhood. "Oh, hi, sis. We were just discussing your fiancé." Ethan pushed her off. His face was ashen. He started stammering something. "Haley, it's not what you think." "It was a mistake," she came on to me. "We'd been drinking. I don't know what came over me." I was silent. I looked at the ring on my finger. His grandmother's ring. Then I looked back at Vanessa, who was brazenly straightening my t-shirt on her body. Something inside me died in that moment. I turned and left. I didn't cry. There was just emptiness. All hell broke loose at home. Nora cried and said Vanessa was just confused. Dad was furious. He threw Vanessa out of the house that very night. He yelled at Nora, saying she raised such a snake. For the first time, I saw them fight like that. Their marriage cracked in that instant. Ethan texted me hundreds of times. He came to the house, but I wouldn't go out. He said he loved only me, that Vanessa meant nothing to him. He said he'd call off the wedding, that he'd go to therapy, that he'd do anything. But I couldn't. Every time I looked at him, I saw them in that room. I saw her smirking. The worst happened 2 weeks later. Vanessa announced she was pregnant. Ethan, despite all his guilt, said he would stand by the child. He wasn't the type of person to abandon his own. He told me in our last conversation, "Haley, I'm sorry. I love you, but I can't abandon my child. I have to be there for them." They started dating. Vanessa moved in with him. She got everything. The apartment I dreamed of, the man I planned my life with, the future I had built. And I was left in my father's house, with a broken heart and shattered dreams. The next year was the darkest in my life. I stopped drawing. The publishing house I worked with stopped receiving new work from me. I barely left my room. Dad tried to cheer me up, but he was broken too. His marriage to Nora had become a formality. They lived together but slept in separate rooms. Nora constantly visited Vanessa to help with the grandchild. Vanessa gave birth to a boy, named him Ethan Jr. She plastered tons of photos on social media. The perfect family, the perfect home, the perfect husband. It was poison for me. I blocked her, but friends would sometimes forward me her posts. It was intentionally cruel of them, but they probably didn't understand the pain they caused. I started seeing a therapist. It helped me get back on my feet. I returned to drawing, started working on a graphic novel. It was a dark story about a girl and her shadow, which one day steals her face. Quite symbolic. About a year and a half later, I finally started going out again. I met a guy through work, Mark. He was a sound engineer, calm, reliable. We started dating. It wasn't the crazy passion I had with Ethan, but being with him felt warm and peaceful. I started to believe life was getting better. But one evening, when Mark and I were having dinner in the city, I saw Ethan. He was alone, sitting in the corner of a bar, drinking whiskey. He looked terrible. Unshaven, gaunt, in a wrinkled shirt. He looked up and saw me. There was so much pain in his eyes that I involuntarily flinched. Mark, noticing my hesitation, asked who it was. I explained briefly. Meanwhile, Ethan approached us. "Haley," he croaked. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Mark tensed, but I nodded. I stepped outside with Ethan. "She cheated on me," he blurted out. "Vanessa. She's sleeping with my best friend. The one who was the witness at our stupid civil ceremony. I found out a month ago. She didn't even deny it. Said I was boring, that I still loved you, and that she needed excitement." I was silent. There was no gloating inside me. Just weariness. "I'm divorcing her," he continued. "I did a paternity test. Haley, Ethan Jr. is 1.5 now. He's not mine." The world tilted. "What?" I breathed out. "I did the test when I started suspecting. The child isn't mine. It's from that guy she was probably already seeing back then. Maybe even before we started. She was just looking for someone to provide for her, and I, fool that I am, fell for it." He started crying, right there on the street. "Forgive me, Haley. I destroyed everything. I destroyed us. I wake up every night thinking what an idiot I was. She ruined my life, just like she ruined yours." I went back to Mark. We left. I didn't look back. Ethan and Vanessa got divorced. She tried to sue him for the apartment, but since the marriage was short and she cheated, she got nothing. She was left alone with a child who, it turned out, belonged to her ex-boss from the ad agency. He, of course, was married and wasn't going to change anything. Her perfect life crumbled faster than a house of cards. I watched from the sidelines. My life with Mark continued. I was almost finished with my graphic novel. But inside me, there was a secret waiting to be revealed. And here's the most unexpected part of this story. When I was little, shortly after Mom died, Dad, trying to cope with grief, turned to religion for a few months. He took me to church, and there we met an elderly couple, Mr. and Mrs. Greenwood. They were childless and grew very fond of me. They often invited us over. Mr. Greenwood was a lawyer, a very wealthy man. Mrs. Greenwood baked the best cookies in the world. When I was 8, Mrs. Greenwood passed away. Mr. Greenwood was left alone. He kept in touch with Dad. He came to my birthdays and always gave me expensive gifts, paints, easels, art books. He would say, "You're talented, Haley. You're Claire's daughter," and she was an amazing woman. When I turned 18, Mr. Greenwood also passed away. Dad was very somber at his funeral. I didn't think much of it. But a month after the funeral, a lawyer came to our house. It turned out Mr. Greenwood had left a will. He had no other relatives besides a distant niece he'd seen a couple of times in his life. And he left everything to me. It wasn't just everything. It was a huge fortune. A house in a prestigious neighborhood, savings, investments, and most importantly, a plot of land within the city limits that his family had bought 100 years ago. The value of that land was in the millions of dollars. This was our secret, Dad's and mine. We told no one, not Nora, and certainly not Vanessa. Dad said, "Haley, people can change when money is involved. This is your inheritance from a man who loved you. Let this be your safety net in life." I agreed. I put the documents in a safe deposit box and lived my life, not touching the money. My illustrator's income was enough. Another 6 months passed. The story with Ethan and Vanessa was slowly fading. I was happy with Mark. But then Vanessa resurfaced. She had nowhere to go. Nora begged Dad to let her come back. Dad, who by then was barely speaking to Nora, was adamant this time. "No, that wretched woman ruined my daughter's life. I won't let her set foot on my property." Nora was furious. She yelled that I should forgive, that Vanessa made a mistake, that she was a young mother, that she needed help. There was a final break between them. Nora packed her bags and left to live with Vanessa, renting them an apartment. Vanessa, cut off from Ethan's easy money and her stepfather's support, started writing to me. First, messages with apologies. Haley, I'm sorry, I was a fool, I was drunk, he seduced me, I didn't know what I was doing. Then, when I didn't reply, the messages turned meaner. You're just lucky, everything always fell into your lap. I had to struggle to survive. You and your father are selfish. I didn't reply, but one evening while Mark and I were at the movies, my phone blew up with calls. It was Nora. I declined. Then a text came from Vanessa. I know what you're hiding. I was at the bank, saw your name on some documents when I was getting a card there. You have millions from some old man. You've been sitting on money all this time, pretending to be a poor artist? You need to help me. We're family. There it was. Her greed knew no bounds. I calmly typed back, you're right, Vanessa. I do have money. A lot of money. And you know what? I've been thinking for a long time about what to do with it. And I've made a decision. Next week, I'm signing a contract to buy a building downtown to open a large art gallery and school for kids. It was my dream. And that plot of land you don't know about? I'm selling it for development. With that money, Mark and I will buy a house on the coast and travel. The response was immediate. A stream of abuse, insults, threats. You have no right. It's not fair. You have to share. I blocked her number. Now, looking back, I realize Vanessa, without meaning to, did me a huge favor. If she hadn't stolen Ethan, I might have married him. And I would have lived a life full of lies, because he turned out to be a weak man capable of betrayal. She saved me from a future divorce and heartbreak. I found Mark, a man who was there when I cried at night and who didn't leave me when he found out about my inheritance. On the contrary, he said, it's yours, babe. Spend it however you want. I love you, not it. My gallery is under construction now. I'm naming it, Claire, after my mom. As for Vanessa, I heard her life went off the rails. Nora spent all her savings helping with lawyers when the biological father of the child, that boss, sued her for blackmail. Yes, she tried to blackmail his family, threatening to tell his wife everything if he didn't pay child support. He didn't pay, hired a good lawyer instead, and now Vanessa has a criminal record. She works as a cashier at a supermarket and lives in a tiny apartment with her child. Ethan, we run into each other sometimes. He never remarried. He drinks heavily. A few times he's tried to talk to me, but I politely but firmly make it clear that the past is in the past. I feel sorry for him, but I can't forgive him. Some things you just can't forgive. And me, I'm happy, because I learned one simple thing. The best revenge isn't even revenge. It's just living well and being happy. And having an ace up your sleeve that your enemy doesn't even know about. Story 2. Hey everyone. My name is Sarah, and I was the happiest woman in the world. Or, at least, I thought I was. Mark and I met in our last year of college. He was charming, funny, with that light spark of adventure in his eyes that is so attractive to young girls. I was more grounded, I guess. I always loved order, stability, and coziness. That probably came from my dad. Dad was a military man, served his whole life, accustomed to discipline and precision. He raised me alone after my mom left us when I was 5. He taught me to take a punch, to value honesty, and to never be afraid of work. Mark and I complemented each other perfectly. I was his quiet harbor, and he was my breath of fresh air. After college, we got married. The wedding was modest but very heartfelt. Dad looked at Mark with hope and a slight hint of jealousy, as any father does when giving away his daughter. We rented a small apartment, counted every penny, made plans, and were incredibly happy. Mark worked as a manager at a car dealership, and I was an accountant at a small firm. Money was only enough for the bare necessities, but we didn't lose heart. We dreamed of our own house, of children, and of someday starting our own business. We didn't even know what kind yet, but the very fact that we would be working for ourselves seemed like the ultimate dream. And then came the event that turned our lives upside down. My dad, he passed away suddenly. A heart attack. It couldn't handle it, even though he never complained. It was a terrible blow for me. He wasn't just my father, he was my foundation, my support. Mark behaved impeccably. He took care of all the funeral arrangements, supported me, never left my side. I was drowning in my grief, and he was my lifeline. Then, about a month after the funeral, it turned out that Dad had left an inheritance. And it was a considerable one. Over the years of service, through dangerous assignments, through always saving and never spending much on himself, he had accumulated a substantial sum. He wanted me to have a future. And that future was now sitting in my bank account. Mark and I sat in the kitchen for a long time that night when the lawyer's documents arrived. We stared at the figure on the statement, unable to believe our eyes. "Sarah," Mark said quietly, taking my hand. "This is our chance. It's the chance we've been dreaming of." I nodded, feeling tears welling up in my eyes. Tears of gratitude for Dad. He was still taking care of me, even from beyond. "Let's start our own business," Mark continued, his eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. "A small one, but ours. I've been thinking about it. Our neighborhood is missing one thing." "What?" I asked. "A good hardware store. There's a new residential complex being built nearby. People are moving in, doing renovations. And driving to a big box home improvement store on the outskirts for every little thing is such a hassle." I liked the idea. It was practical, down to earth. It had a certain reliability to it that reminded me so much of Dad. We named the store Home and Heart. We invested most of the inheritance into renting the space, buying the first batch of inventory, shelves, and cash register equipment. The first few months were insane. We worked from morning until night, without weekends or holidays. I handled the accounting, managed orders, and worked the cash register. Mark received shipments, advised customers, and unloaded heavy bags of cement and tile. We were exhausted, but it was a happy exhaustion. We watched our store grow. Customers, who at first came out of curiosity, kept coming back. They praised our selection, our prices, and most of all, our personal touch. We knew every regular customer by name, could advise on the best glue for bathroom tiles or which paint wouldn't smell in a child's room. After 6 months, we hired our first salesperson, an older woman named Mary who lived nearby. It allowed us to at least have an occasional day off. Then, one day, about a year after opening, I realized my tiredness was different. A craving for oranges, a strange reaction to smells from my favorite coffee shop, constant drowsiness. I bought a test. 2 lines appeared instantly, bright and clear. I don't remember driving home. I remember holding the test out to Mark. He looked at it, then at me, and his face broke into such a happy smile that my heart leapt with joy. He picked me up and spun me around the room. "Sarah, we're going to be parents," he shouted. "It's a miracle. It's simply a miracle." The pregnancy was easy. I worked at the store right up until the very end, until labor pains caught me while I was counting the day's receipts. Mark panicked but quickly got himself together. The birth went well, and our son was born. We named him Thomas, after my father. He was the most beautiful creature in the world. Tiny, with my blue eyes and his dad's dimples. The first few years of Thomas's life were filled with chaos, sleeplessness, but endless happiness. We bought a small house with a garden in a quiet neighborhood. Business was booming. Home and Heart became so popular that we had to expand. We rented the space next door and increased our inventory. We now had 3 salespeople, a delivery driver, and a cleaner. Thomas grew into an inquisitive and lively boy. He loved playing in his sandbox in the garden, building towers with blocks, and helping us at the store when we sometimes brought him along. He adored Mark, greeting him from work with joyful squeals and hanging on his neck. Mark was a wonderful father. He played cars with him, read bedtime stories, bathed him in the big tub, creating mountains of bubbles. When Thomas turned 4, we realized things couldn't go on like this. The store was taking more and more time. There was a mountain of paperwork, meetings with new suppliers, issues with documents. We started staying late, especially on Friday and Saturday evenings when there was a rush of customers. And then the problems began. We started being late to pick up Thomas from daycare. The teacher would reprimand us, saying Thomas got upset when he was the last one left. I missed a parent-teacher meeting about preparing for a school event. Mark forgot to bring a craft project for the autumn fair, and Thomas was very upset seeing the other children's projects. We felt like terrible parents. We were exhausting ourselves to secure our son's future, but in the present, we were failing him. The solution was obvious. We needed a nanny. Someone who could pick Thomas up from daycare, walk with him, feed him dinner, and wait for us until we got home from work. We started searching. It proved difficult. Elderly ladies wanting extra money applied, but they were either too slow or, conversely, too active and tried to tell us how to live. One candidate seemed a bit strange to me, another overly religious. We worried about who to trust with our child. Then one day, a sweet girl walked into our store. Thin, with long blonde hair braided, and huge brown eyes. She timidly asked to speak to the owner. Mark came out of the back room. "Hello," she said softly. "My name is Emma. I'm 16. I'm in college, and I really need an evening job. I saw the sign in your window about looking for a home helper or nanny. I love children. I have younger siblings, and I always babysit them." Mark looked at me. I looked at Emma. She had none of the brashness or self-confidence you often see in teenagers. She was modest, clean, and seemed very responsible. "What about your studies?" I asked. "School is until 2 o'clock, Emma answered quickly. "Then I'm free until evening. I need to save up for the next semester. I want to go to university for pre-med." We talked with her a bit more. She made a wonderful impression. We agreed she would come to our house for a trial day and meet Thomas. Thomas, who was usually wary of strangers, was showing Emma his toys and giving her rides on his big red car within half an hour. We hired Emma, and life fell into place again. Emma was a gem. She arrived promptly at 3, picked Thomas up from daycare, walked with him in the park, played, helped him with the simple homework from daycare, and always left us notes. Fed Thomas mac and cheese. He ate it all. Walked for 2 hours, great mood, new toy car broke, need to buy glue. Thomas adored her. He called her, my Emma, and looked forward to her arrival more than ours. It stung a little, but we understood it was jealousy, and we dealt with it by trying to spend every free moment with our son. Business at home and heart was going so well that we started thinking about expanding. In a neighboring town, Middleton, about 200 kilometers away, a big construction project was just starting. A whole residential complex was being built there, and by our estimates, a hardware store there would be a gold mine. Mark and I discussed the idea for a long time. It was a risk. A new place, new competitors, new expenses. But ambition and the desire to secure Thomas's future won out. "Sarah," Mark said one evening while we were having tea in the kitchen. "I think you should do it." Me? I was surprised. "Yes, you have a great business sense. You're better with numbers and organization than I am. You can set everything up from scratch there, hire the right people, get the processes going. And I'll stay here, look after our first store and Thomas. Emma will help, and I can spend more time at home." His arguments sounded logical. I was flattered by his trust. The thought of building another successful business was exciting. We discussed all the details, and I agreed. The first few months in Middleton were a nightmare. I rented a small apartment near the future store. I was there from morning till night, overseeing the renovation, ordering equipment, negotiating with landlords, finding staff. I missed home terribly, missed Mark, missed Thomas. We video called every evening. Thomas showed me his drawings, told me how he and Emma had gone to feed the ducks. Mark said he missed me, that he was waiting for me, that everything was under control. I believed his every word. There were weeks when I couldn't get away. The drive took almost 3 hours one way, and there was so much to do. I came home once every 2 weeks, on weekends, exhausted but happy. Mark and I would spend those days like a second honeymoon, and Thomas never left my side. After 7 months of this grueling schedule, the new store finally became stable. I found a capable manager, an older man, Mr. Harrison, who used to own a small construction business himself but had retired and wanted to work a bit. He was experienced and reliable. I could finally breathe a sigh of relief and get ready to go home, to become a full-time wife and mother again. Thomas's birthday was approaching. He was turning 5. We decided to throw a real party in the garden. A bouncy castle, a candy table, a superhero entertainer. I invited all our friends and, of course, our parents. We also invited Emma, as she had become almost part of the family. "I'll definitely come," she said happily when I called her. "I've already got Thomas's present ready." The birthday was sunny and warm. Guests arrived, children squealed on the bouncy castle, the entertainer did magic tricks, everything was perfect. Except for one thing. Emma didn't come. Later in the afternoon, she sent a message. "Mrs. Sarah, I'm so sorry, I got sick. I have a fever. I can't come, afraid of getting Thomas sick. Please wish him a happy birthday from me." I was a little disappointed, but I replied wishing her a speedy recovery and promised to give Thomas her gift later. The party went wonderfully. Thomas was happy, blew out the candles on his number 5 cake, got tons of presents. But that day, I noticed something strange in Mark for the first time. He seemed jittery, constantly looking at his phone. Several times I saw him step aside, quickly type something, and then, noticing my gaze, hurriedly put his phone away. "Everything okay?" I asked him later when the guests had mostly left and Thomas had fallen asleep right in a deck chair in the garden, stuffed with sweets. "Yeah, of course," he replied with his usual smile. "Work stuff. A new supplier being a pain. We'll sort it out." I didn't think much of it. Work stuff was always happening. But after the birthday, things felt different. Mark started going out often in the evenings. Going to Jake's for a beer. Mike's inviting me fishing, meeting up with friends, hanging at the bar. He'd never been much of a socializer before, preferring to spend evenings at home with the family. Now he seemed to look for any excuse to leave. Sometimes he came home late, smelling of alcohol, and was irritable. I chalked it up to exhaustion. After all, he'd been working hard too all these months while I was away. Then came that evening. We had already gone to bed, around 11. Suddenly his phone rang. Mark glanced at the screen, and I saw his back stiffen. He jumped out of bed. "Who is it?" I asked sleepily. "Just work," he muttered and dashed out of the bedroom into the living room, closing the door firmly behind him. Something inside me pricked. Work? At 11 o'clock at night? I quietly got up, went to the door, and pressed my ear against it. At first, I only heard muffled voices, but then Mark, apparently forgetting about being quiet, shouted. I had never heard him talk like that. His voice was filled with such cold, icy fury that a shiver ran down my spine. "Shut your mouth," he hissed into the phone. "You hear me? Shut your mouth and do as you're told. She must not find out anything. Nothing. I'll handle it myself, you understand? Don't call me when I'm home anymore." He abruptly ended the call. I barely had time to jump away from the door and scurry back into bed, pretending to be asleep. My heart was pounding in my throat. Mark came back into the room, lay down on his side, and tossed and turned for a long time, unable to fall asleep. I lay there, afraid to move, and one phrase kept running through my head. She must not find out anything. Who is she? Me? Or someone else? And what was I not supposed to find out? The next morning, Mark left for work early, without even having breakfast. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of cold coffee, trying to calm my thoughts. Maybe it was something related to the business? Maybe he owed someone money? Maybe tax problems? I was lost in conjecture, but I clearly understood one thing. Something was going on, and he was hiding it from me. Then, around 10 o'clock, the phone rang. The screen showed Emma. I was happy, thinking she had finally recovered and we could arrange the schedule for the next week. "Mrs. Sarah," Emma's voice was somehow wooden, lifeless. I'm calling to say that I can't come anymore." "What happened, Emma?" I tensed up. "Are you sick? If you need time, we can wait." "No," she interrupted. "I'm not sick. I just can't. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't call me anymore." And she hung up. I sat there, stunned. It was so unlike the sweet, polite, responsible Emma I knew. She adored Thomas, she needed the money for school, she was always so grateful for the job. And then suddenly, such a sharp, empty conversation, as if she were reciting a memorized script. In my mind, like a flash of lightning, two events connected. The call last night and Mark's aggression, and today's call from Emma. She must not find out anything. Maybe Emma was that she. What had he done to her? What was he threatening her with? Why was she quitting so suddenly, afraid even to explain why? I couldn't sit idly by any longer. I needed to know the truth. I remembered that when we hired Emma, she left a copy of her ID and her address. I found the folder with the documents. She lived in an old neighborhood not far from the city center. That evening, I told Mark one had to urgently go to Middleton, to the new store. Some problem with the paperwork, Mr. Harrison needed help. Mark even seemed happy about it. "Sure, go, honey," he said, pecking me on the cheek. "Get it sorted. Thomas and I will manage. Maybe I'll ask my mom to come for a couple of days." I felt disgusted by his fake concern, but I held back. In the morning, I got in my car and drove. Except I didn't go to Middleton. I drove to Emma's address. It was an old 2-story multi-family house with peeling paint and a rickety porch. I walked up to the porch and rang the bell on the door covered in old leatherette. An elderly woman in glasses and a flowery apron opened the door. "Hello," I said as pleasantly as possible. "I'm looking for Emma. Emma White. Does she live here?" Yes, the woman replied, eyeing me curiously. "And who might you be?" "I'm her employer, Sarah," I explained. "She used to take care of my son. I need to speak with her." "Oh, Sarah dear." The woman clasped her hands. Emma's told me about you. She spoke very highly of you. She's not here right now, just ran to the store for bread. Should be back soon. Would you like to come in and wait? I'm her grandmother, Elizabeth. Thank you, I'll just wait in the car, I smiled. Get some fresh air. I went outside, sat in the car, and waited. About 20 minutes passed. I was starting to get nervous when I finally saw her. Emma was walking along the sidewalk, and my breath caught in my throat. She walked slowly, slightly swaying, one hand resting on a small but already noticeably rounded belly. A belly that hadn't been there just a month ago. I got out of the car. Emma, I called out. She looked up, startled, and at that very moment, her face contorted with terror. The bag of groceries slipped from her hands and rolled onto the asphalt. Mrs. Sarah, she whispered, backing away. No, please, go away. Please. She started crying, bitterly, sobbing, covering her face with her hands. I walked over to her and put my arm around her shoulders. Hush, Emma, I said as gently as I could. Don't be afraid of me. I'm not your enemy. I want to understand what happened. I can't tell you, she sobbed. He'll kill me. He said he'd kill me and my grandmother if I ever told anyone. It felt like I'd been doused with ice water. The blood drained from my face. I already knew the answer, but I was afraid to hear it. Mark? I asked quietly. She just sobbed harder in response. I helped her gather the scattered groceries, took her hand, and led her to the car. We sat inside, and I waited. Finally, when she had calmed down a little, I asked again. Tell me everything, Emma. Everything from the beginning. I promise you, no one will hurt you anymore. I will protect you. And she told me that terrible, vile story that made everything inside me turn upside down. One evening when I was in Middleton, Mark had been at a friend's birthday party. He came home late, very drunk. Emma had already put Thomas to bed and was sitting in the living room, doing her homework. Mark stumbled into the room, started rambling drunken nonsense, and then began to make advances towards her. She got scared, tried to get up and leave, said she'd call a cab and go home. That's when he got angry. He grabbed her arm, pinned her against the wall, and whispered, "If you leave now, I'll tell Sarah you stole money from us. Or that you tried to seduce me. Who do you think she'll believe? A girl like you, or me, her husband? You'll lose your money, your job, and no one in this town will hire you with a reputation like that. You'll be scrubbing floors for pennies if you don't get kicked out of college first." She hesitated for just a second, trying to process his threats, and that second was all he needed. He dragged her into the guest bedroom and raped her. She screamed, but he clamped his hand over her mouth. Thomas was asleep, Emma's grandmother was far away, there was no help to be had. Afterwards, he told her to keep quiet, or he would make her life hell. She stayed quiet, and a month later, she realized she was pregnant. When she told him on the phone, he flew into a rage. He forbade her from coming near the house, told her to quit, and promised to pay for an abortion if she took care of the problem. But Emma was Catholic, she couldn't do it. Then he started threatening her for real, saying if she didn't get rid of the baby, he'd make sure everyone at her college found out and her family would disown her. Listening to this horror, I felt a cold fury boiling inside me. That man I had lived with for almost 7 years, the father of my son, was a monster. A rapist, a liar. I hugged Emma. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry I didn't protect you from this monster. I will make this right. I will make him pay for everything." I couldn't just go to the police with Emma's word alone. We needed proof. Mark was smart and careful. The word of a 16-year-old girl against a successful businessman? Lawyers could twist it all around. We needed a recording. I devised a plan. I told Emma to call Mark the next evening, around 11, and provoke him into a conversation. Ask him about money, ask him what she should do about the pregnancy, make him angry. I would take care of the rest. The next day, I was home as usual. We had dinner, put Thomas to bed. I told Mark one was exhausted and was going to lie down early. Instead, I quietly slipped into the living room. There, behind a large ficus plant in a pot, I hid a voice recorder, turned it on, and checked that it would pick up the armchair Mark usually sat in when he talked on the phone. Then I went to the bedroom and lay down, but I didn't close my eyes. Right at 11, the phone rang. Mark, just as I expected, grabbed his phone, glanced at the screen, swore under his breath, and rushed into the living room. I heard him pacing around. I held my breath. The conversation started quietly, but gradually Mark got more worked up. I could hear his muffled voice but couldn't make out the words. But that didn't matter. The recorder was catching it all. He talked for about 10 minutes, then abruptly ended the call, came back to the bedroom, threw his phone on the nightstand, and, without even looking at me, turned his back to me. I waited. About 20 minutes later, when his breathing became steady, I quietly got up, crept into the living room, retrieved the recorder, and went back to bed. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would wake the whole house. In the morning, after Mark left, I immediately played the recording. The voices were crystal clear. "What, are you crazy calling me at this hour?" he hissed. "I told you not to call when I'm home. Then, I don't care about your problems. You're to blame yourself, you should have listened. Don't you dare threaten me, you hear me? If you even whisper about the pregnancy to anyone, and finally, the kicker. I'll deal with your pregnancy myself. Just sit tight and keep your head down. If Sarah finds out, you'll regret it." As I listened, I felt something inside me die. Love died. Trust died. The image of the family I had created for myself died. But instead of emptiness, determination filled the space. Cold, ruthless determination. I called Emma. "Emma, hi. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. We're going to the police." I have the recording. At the police station, they took us seriously. Emma, though crying, told them everything clearly and without hesitation. I handed the recorder to the detective. After listening to the recording, the detective, a stern woman named Lieutenant Brown, looked at me with respect. "Mrs. Sarah, you have nerves of steel," she said. "This is more than enough for an arrest warrant and to charge him with the rape of a minor." "I want to go with you," I said firmly. "I want to see his face." "We usually don't recommend it," she began, but then, looking at me, she nodded. "All right, but you'll stay in the car until we have him under control. Then you can come." We pulled up to our house. I sat in the police car with Emma, who was holding my hand. Lieutenant Brown and two plainclothes officers went into the yard. I could see through the window Mark tinkering with the rose bushes in the garden. He looked up, saw the police. I couldn't hear what they said, but I saw him pale, saw him flinch as if to run, but the officers already had him by the arms. "Time to go," I said to Emma. "Let's go." We got out of the car and walked to the gate. Mark, who was being handcuffed, looked up and saw us. For a moment, pure, animal terror flashed in his eyes, immediately replaced by rage. He lunged towards me. "Sarah," he shouted, "it's not what you think. She's lying. She came onto me, she was making eyes at me. She's a little slut." I walked closer. An officer blocked my way, but I stopped anyway. I looked at him and didn't recognize him. This man with his face twisted in anger, with beads of sweat on his forehead, had nothing to do with the Mark one had loved. In front of me stood a stranger, a dangerous and despicable animal. "Stop lying, Mark," I said calmly, though everything inside me was churning. "I know everything. I heard your phone conversation. It's been recorded." He froze. You were eavesdropping?" he hissed. "You bitch." "I was protecting my family," I replied. Suddenly, he laughed, nervously, hysterically. "So what now? You'll have me arrested? And the business?" "The business is jointly owned. I'll hire a lawyer, and I'll get out. And I'll sell my half. I'll sell everything and leave the country. I stopped loving you a long time ago, Sarah. I was only with you for your daddy's money. You thought I really loved you? Fool." Each word was like a slap in the face. But I didn't flinch. I withstood the blow. I looked at him and smiled. I smiled the kind of smile he'd probably remember for the rest of his life. "You know, Mark," I said quietly, so only he could hear. "You're right. I was a fool who couldn't see who was really lying next to her in bed. But now I see clearly. And you're wrong about the business. You're not going anywhere." I turned to Lieutenant Brown and nodded. She walked up to Mark and read him his rights. At that moment, I opened the gate wider, and two witnesses we had brought with us came out from around the corner of the house. Mark was led away. Before getting into the police car, he turned and looked at me. There was nothing but hatred in his eyes. I returned his gaze calmly. Let him remember me this way. 6 months have passed. The trial was swift. The recording, Emma's testimony, the office's testimony, the medical exam report, there was more than enough evidence. Mark was sentenced to 12 years in a maximum security prison for the rape of a minor. Additionally, the court stripped him of all parental rights regarding Thomas, and, based on the civil lawsuit I filed, his share of the business was transferred to me as compensation for the emotional distress caused to me and Emma. Thomas, thank God, is still too young to understand the full horror of what happened. All he knows is that Daddy went far, far away and isn't coming back. I'll tell him the truth when he's older. But not now. Emma lives with us. I insisted on it. Her grandmother agreed, understanding that Emma would be safe and supervised in my home. Emma looks after Thomas again while I work. Thomas is overjoyed that his beloved Emma is always with him now. They play, they walk, they read books. Emma gave birth to a boy. We named him Joseph. Yes, he is Mark's son, but that's not his fault. Emma made the decision to keep him, and I support her. We are raising Thomas and little Joey together. They are like brothers. Thomas doesn't yet understand why Joey is so small and why he lives with us, but he adores him and is always trying to babysit him, offering him his toy cars. I manage both stores, Home and Heart, in our town and Home and Heart 2 inches in Middleton. Mr. Harrison turned out to be an excellent manager, and business is doing even better than when Mark was involved. I work hard, but now I know what for. For my boys. For Thomas and little Joey. For Emma, who has become like a little sister to me. Sometimes at night I wake up in a cold sweat, remembering his voice, his lies, his touch. But then I hear the peaceful breathing of the children in the next room. I feel the warmth and coziness of the home I built myself, and I realize I did everything right. My father, Dad, taught me to be strong. He used to say, "Sarah, life throws all sorts of things at you. But the main thing is never to lose yourself and always protect those who are weaker." I lost myself for a while, blinded by love, but I found myself again. And now I know the true value of the inheritance he left me. It wasn't just money. It was freedom. Freedom from lies, from betrayal, and from the man who turned out to be a monster. We sit in the garden on a warm summer evening. Emma rocks the stroller with Joey, Thomas builds a sandcastle. I watch them and think that life goes on. And it is beautiful, despite everything. Story 3. Hi, Reddit. My name is Jacob Michaels, but everyone just calls me Jake. I'm 38. I own a small but damn successful IT company. We make software for logistics companies, and let's just say we're recession-proof. Money is something I've always had enough of. But money, as we know, can't buy happiness. It only buys comfort, and comfort is just the absence of discomfort, not happiness. I know that for sure now. This story began 13 years ago. 2010. Cleveland, Ohio. My best friend Mark's wedding. I was standing at the bar with a whiskey in my hand, trying to survive the maid of honor's speech, which had already lasted 15 minutes and showed no signs of ending. And then I saw her. She was a bridesmaid, red hair, tied up in a messy bun, a few stray strands framing her face. An ivory dress, simple but perfectly fitted. She was laughing at something another girl said, and when she laughed, her eyes turned into 2 crescent moons full of light. I forgot how to breathe. Honestly, I thought that only happened in the rom-coms my mom watches on weekends. But no, my heart literally skipped a beat, then started pounding so hard I sloshed my whiskey. I walked up to her, said something stupid, something about the weather. She smiled. Her name was Lauren Hale. She was an architect. After 5 minutes of talking, I knew I was a goner. After an hour, we were dancing slow, and her head was on my shoulder. After 2 hours, we'd exchanged numbers. A week later, we had our first date. A month later, we couldn't live without each other. I remember every detail of that time. How we walked along the Lake Erie shore and she fed the seagulls, ignoring the "don't feed the birds" signs. How she woke up in the morning and her hair smelled like vanilla and something indefinably homey. How she sketched building designs on napkins in coffee shops, and I just watched her, not believing my luck. A year later, I proposed. I took her to Vermont, to that same little lake cabin where we'd spent our first weekend together. Sunset, the lake like a mirror. I got down on one knee on the wooden pier, and she said, yes. Her eyes were wet, mine were too. I'm not ashamed of that. The wedding was in September 2011. We rented an old mansion, invited 120 guests. We danced until we dropped. My mom cried. Her father gave a toast that brought tears to everyone's eyes. It was a perfect day. Absolutely perfect. Honeymoon in the Maldives. Aquamarine water, overwater bungalows, candlelit dinners on the beach. We made love to the sound of the ocean and made plans. House, kids, a dog. Just like everyone else. Just like in a happy movie. We bought a house in the Cleveland suburbs. The neighborhood was called Westwood Hills, quiet, green, with good schools. A 3-story colonial-style house with a big lawn and old oaks around the property. We furnished it together, chose every chair, every lamp. It was our nest. I built a home office on the 3rd floor, with a wall-to-wall window overlooking the garden. Lauren set up her studio in the basement, with a huge drafting table and easels. Life was beautiful. 2 years after the wedding, we started trying for a baby. At first it was fun. Oh, well, let's try again, what a shame. Then it became routine. Then an obsession. A year passed. Nothing. We went to doctors. Lauren was examined from head to toe. Me too. Verdict: both healthy. Stress, the doctors said. Work less, rest more, relax. Do yoga, change your scenery. We changed our scenery. Flew to the Bahamas, to California, to Italy. Nothing worked. I watched Lauren fall apart. She looked at other people's children in the park with such longing that my heart broke. I told her, honey, if it's not meant to be, we can adopt. So many kids need parents. She shook her head. I want my own. Yours and mine. I didn't think much of it when she started going on those weekend yoga retreats. It helps me relax, she said. Go ahead, of course, I replied. I support you. I was working 60-hour weeks, launching a new product that would make my company a market leader. I got so tired I'd fall into bed and pass out in seconds. I didn't have time for yoga. I didn't have time for questions. Sometimes I noticed odd things. She'd smile at her phone, and when I came near, the screen would go dark. She put a password on her phone, though she never had before. Oh, work requires security now, all phones have to have passwords, she explained. I believed her. I trusted her. I loved her. And then, a miracle. In early 2015, Lauren announced she was pregnant. It was a shock, an explosion of happiness. I bought champagne, juice for her, cake, flowers, called both sets of parents. We cried in the bathroom, staring at that test with 2 lines. I talked to her belly, stroked it, promised the unborn baby the best childhood in the world. The pregnancy was perfect. Lauren blossomed. I carried her, literally. When her feet swelled, I massaged them. When she craved strawberries at 3 a.m. in winter, I drove to the 24-hour supermarket 3 towns over. I built the nursery myself. I painted the walls a soft blue myself, assembled the crib myself, put up the shelves with teddy bears myself. Every nail, every screw, was driven with the thought, this is for my son or daughter. In August 2015, Ethan was born. 7 pounds 8 ounces, 21 inches, loud, red, and the most beautiful baby in the world. When they placed him in my arms at the hospital, I sobbed. Honestly, I couldn't help it. This was my son, my blood, my flesh, my continuation. The first years of Ethan's life were the best of mine. Yes, we didn't sleep at night. Yes, endless diapers, colic, teething, insomnia. But when that little person grabbed my finger with his tiny hand and smiled his gummy smile, the whole world disappeared. There was only us. I took him to the office with me when I could. Carried him in a sling while I worked at the computer. Rocked him to sleep to the hum of the server room fans. He'd fall asleep on my chest, and I could feel his tiny heartbeat in sync with mine. Lauren went back to work when Ethan was 1. Her career took off. She became lead architect at her firm. Projects, clients, business trips. I was proud of her. We hired a part-time nanny, but I still tried to spend as much time with Ethan as possible. I took him to daycare myself, picked him up myself, bathed him myself at night, read him stories myself. Lauren was often late. Work, honey, you understand. I understood. I'd worked around the clock myself once. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at Ethan strangely. Not like a mother, like she saw something in him I didn't. A shadow. A question. Worry. What is it? I'd ask. Nothing, she'd reply, looking away. Just thinking about work. I didn't push. The years passed. Ethan grew. At 3, he knew the alphabet. At 4, he could read simple words. At 5, he could build Lego sets meant for 10-year-olds. I adored him. I saw myself in him. The same habits, the same persistence, the same stubborn chin. He's your spitting image, friend said. All his father, my mom echoed. Lauren was silent or changed the subject. In 2018, I first noticed something was off. I came home from a business trip to Chicago a day early. Decided to surprise them. Got home around 10 p.m. The house was empty. Lauren wasn't there. Ethan wasn't there. He was staying with my parents, as planned. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a whiskey, and saw a cigarette butt in the trash. A cigarette with lipstick on it. Lauren didn't smoke, never had. I took it out, turned it over in my hands. Maybe a friend came over? But why smoke inside when you could go out? I photographed it with my phone and threw it back. When Lauren came back an hour later, she'd been at the movies with a friend. I asked, "Did someone stop by?" "No, why?" "There's a cigarette butt in the trash." She blinked. For a second, fear flickered in her eyes. Then she smiled. "Oh, that was Sarah stopping by this afternoon. You know she smokes." I told her it was okay inside, it's cold out. "Sorry, I'll air it out." Sarah was her friend. Sarah did smoke. Logical. I let it go. The second warning came a year later. I went into her office to grab a charger. Her phone was on the desk. The screen lit up, a notification arrived. I glanced at it and froze. A message from DK, missing yesterday evening. When's the next time? I stood there, rooted to the spot. My heart dropped to my stomach, then leapt to my throat. Just then, Lauren walked in. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for a charger." My voice was steady, though everything inside was burning. "Who's DK?" She looked at the phone, then at me. Not a flicker of embarrassment. "David Kramer, the new partner on the project. We're working on a bid. He sent revisions late last night." DK. That's how I have him in my phone, to distinguish him from the other David. And the "missing yesterday evening" part? "Jake, we worked until 1 a.m. He means he misses our productive meeting. You're getting paranoid, aren't you?" I said nothing. Maybe I was paranoid. The third warning, and the loudest, came in 2020 when the pandemic started. We were all stuck at home. Lauren worked remotely. Ethan was homeschooled. I was home too. It should have been the perfect time to be together. But Lauren became even more distant. She'd lock herself in her studio with headphones on, saying she had important calls. She'd only come out for dinner, and then with a dissatisfied face. One night I woke up and she wasn't in bed. 3:15 a.m. I got up, went looking. Her studio was dark. I went downstairs to the kitchen, empty. Went outside, empty. Went back to the bedroom, was about to call her, when I heard quiet laughter from behind the bathroom door. She was sitting in the bathroom, door locked, whispering on the phone. I knocked. "Lauren, you okay?" Yeah, came from behind the door. "Just Mom called, she has insomnia. I'll be out in a minute." Mom was in a nursing home. Mom had dementia. Mom didn't call at 3 a.m. I got back in bed and stared at the ceiling until morning. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. I hoarded suspicions like a miser hoards gold. Buried them deep inside, but they grew, pressed, robbed me of sleep. In 2021, Lauren announced she wanted to go on a yoga retreat. For the first time in ages. "I need to clear my head, Jake. Can you manage Ethan for a few days?" I said, "Of course." And for the first time in my life, I lied to her. I told her I had an important meeting with an investor that weekend. Instead, I hired a private investigator. The pie cost me $5,000 for the weekend. He followed her. The result? Lauren didn't go to a yoga camp in Pennsylvania. She went to a hotel in downtown Cleveland. There, she met a man. They spent 2 days together, only leaving for food. The pie got photos. When I saw those photos, my heart stopped. It was my wife, my Lauren, with some guy. She was holding his hand, smiling, kissing him on the cheek as they left the hotel. The pie found out his name, Derek Wilson, 40 years old. Architect, works at a competing firm. Married, 2 kids. They'd known each other for at least 10 years, went to college together. I didn't cause a scene. I decided to dig deeper. I'm an IT guy, for crying out loud. I know how to find information. I installed a traffic sniffer on our home router. I intercepted everything sent from her phone. I hacked her iCloud. The password was Ethan's birth date. Did she really think I wouldn't guess? I downloaded all backups for the last 5 years. What I found turned my life to ashes. The chat history with Derek contained thousands of messages. From the very beginning, from 2011, it started before our wedding. It continued for all 12 years. I read, unable to believe my eyes. 2011, a month before the wedding. "Derek, are you sure you want to marry him?" "Lauren, don't start. We've discussed this. He's a good man, he'll give me stability. And you give me what he can't." "Derek, passion?" "Lauren, yes, and more. But we can't be together, you know that. You have your career, I have mine. We have to pretend. 2013, when we were trying for a baby. Lauren. It's not working. The doctors say he's fine. So the problem must be me. Derek. What are you going to do? Lauren. I want a child. Your child. If I can't have his, I'll have yours. Derek. Are you serious? Lauren. Absolutely. I'll come to you when I'm ovulating. He'll never know. He's too busy with work and trusts me. It'll be our child, growing up in a good home with a good father. The perfect plan. They discussed this, cold-bloodedly, like a business deal. They planned to conceive a child while I, naive fool, worked until night to provide for them. I found messages from when Lauren was pregnant. Derek. I hope he looks like me. Lauren. Me too. But Jake is blonde, we're both dark. If he's born dark, it'll be suspicious. Derek. Then pray he's born blonde. Or say it's your genes. Ethan was born blonde. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Like me. Like Derek, actually, also blonde. The perfect cover. I read their plans for the future. They were waiting for Derek's kids from his marriage to grow up a bit so he could divorce with minimal losses. They planned for Lauren to divorce me, take Ethan, and finally live together. 2020. Derek. A few more years. Emily, the wife, is about to have our second. I can't leave now. Be patient. Lauren. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of sleeping with him. Derek. Be patient, baby. For us. For Ethan. For Ethan. For their son, whom I raised, whom I loved, whom I thought was my own flesh and blood. I read it all. 12 years of betrayal, day by day. I learned they met in hotels during every business trip of hers. That he came to our house when I was away. That she laughed at me in their chats, called me a naive deer, a walking wallet, and a perfect idiot. I sat in my office, surrounded by printouts, staring at the wall. I didn't cry. Something inside me died. Some vital part of my soul just switched off so I could survive. I looked at Ethan's photo on my desk. My son, who wasn't my son, and I made a decision. Revenge is a dish best served cold. My revenge was prepared at sub-zero temperatures. First, I went to a lawyer. The best in the city. Marcus Stein, specialist in divorce cases for clients worth $10 million and up. Silver hair, impeccable suits, a voice that made opponents' tails tuck between their legs. I laid out the folder of printouts, the USB drive with the chat logs, the pie's photos. He read for 2 hours. Then leaned back in his chair and looked at me with respect. Jake, he said, I've been practicing for 30 years. I've seen a lot of crap. But this is the Olympics of crap. You have every chance not just to win this divorce, but to destroy them so completely they'll wish they'd never been born. I don't want to win, I replied. I want them to lose. There's a difference. We developed a plan, multi-stage like a rocket capable of reaching the moon. Step 1. Emily Wilson, 38. Homemaker, mother of 2, 7 and 3. From the chats, I knew she had no idea about her husband's infidelity. Derek was a master of conspiracy. I created a fake Instagram account as a fictional woman named Anna. Interior designer from Chicago. I followed Emily, started liking her posts, commenting on her pictures of kids and home decor. A month later, we were DMing. I became her virtual friend. She complained about her always busy husband, her exhaustion, the kids. I agreed, sympathized. When the time was right, I struck. I sent her an anonymous email from an address I'd created just for this. Attached were screenshots of Derek and Lauren's chats, photos from the hotel, dates of meetings. And a short message. I'm sorry. But you deserve the truth. 2 days later, the Pie reported. Emily had hired a lawyer. A week later, Derek was served with divorce papers. Step 2. Lauren worked at Stark & Partners, the elite of the architectural world. They had a strict code of ethics. I compiled a package proving that Lauren used work time for meetings with her lover and, get this, passed internal information about her company's bids to Derek to help him win contracts. Yes, they were so confident in their impunity that they discussed this in their chats. 2019. Lauren. My boss said today they're planning to bid on the City Hall project. $20 million budget. Derek. Great. Send me the specs if you can. Lauren. I will. But you owe me a candle at dinner. Derek. Deal. If I win, I'll buy you earrings. I sent this package to HR, the board of directors, and, for good measure, the local architectural association that issues licenses. 3 weeks later, Lauren was fired for cause disclosure of trade secrets and violation of professional ethics. The news spread through the entire professional community. Her career was destroyed. No respectable firm would hire her after a scandal like that. Step 3. Derek worked on a municipal urban development project. His dream job, government contract, stability, pension. I sent the same package to the city council and the local newspaper. The headline a week later read, "Prominent architect accused of corruption and marital infidelity." The story blew up. The municipal contract was frozen pending investigation. Derek was suspended. His reputation was ruined. Step 4. Lauren and I had a joint account where I deposited money. A lot of money. Over 12 years, a tidy sum had accumulated. I went to the bank with my lawyer. We filed papers freezing the account on suspicion of fraud. I transferred all but $10,000, to avoid being accused of outright theft before the trial, to my personal account, opened long before the marriage. Lauren was left with a credit card, about $3,000 in debt, and an empty bank account. Step 5. I changed the locks. Called a crew. They did it in half a day while Lauren was at a job interview. She didn't know yet she'd been fired and no one would hire her. I neatly packed her things into 10 suitcases and boxes and put them in the garage. I waited. D-Day came in mid-October 2023. I knew Lauren was planning to meet Derek at his new apartment. He'd moved out after his wife kicked him out. Their headquarters, where they discussed their future. I followed her, made sure she went inside the building. At 3 p.m., I sent a courier with 2 packages. The first package, for Lauren, a heavy box tied with a red ribbon. Inside, 3 volumes of their 12-year chat history, printed and bound in leather. On the cover of the first volume, embossed in gold, A Tale of True Love. Volume 1, The Beginning. On the second, Volume 2, The Heyday. On the third, Volume 3, The End. Also inside were the official documents, divorce papers, a petition to annul the marriage due to fraud, and a request for a DNA test to establish paternity of Ethan. The second package, for Derek, a small box. Inside, a baby rattle, the very one I bought when Lauren was pregnant. And a handwritten note, "Congratulations. You have a son. Now pay child support. And remember, I raised your child for 8 years. You owe me. P.S. I hope hell has a special room for you." The courier buzzed the intercom, went up, delivered. I sat in my car across the street, binoculars in hand. 5 minutes later, the building door burst open. Lauren ran out, barefoot, in just a shirt, clutching those volumes. Her face was white as chalk, her eyes wild. She was screaming loud enough to hear across the street. Derek ran out after her, in his underwear, screaming too. They stood on the sidewalk, screaming at each other. "You idiot," she yelled. "You wrote such things. You ruined us." "Me?" he yelled back. "You fed me information. You dragged me into this." She hit him over the head with one of the books. He shoved her. She fell on the asphalt, papers scattering everywhere. At that moment, a black SUV pulled up. Out stepped Emily, Derek's wife, with her lawyer and 2 police officers. She had a warrant for his arrest for non-payment of child support for their children. She'd filed for support right after the divorce, and he hadn't paid. Derek was handcuffed right in front of Lauren, who sat on the ground sobbing. She watched him, the police, the passers-by who stopped and stared. Then she looked up and saw my car. I didn't hide. I rolled down the window and looked at her. There was nothing in my eyes. Emptiness. She screamed, piercing, like a wounded animal. Tried to get up and run to me, but slipped and fell again. I rolled up the window and drove away. The divorce was brutal. Lauren hired a lawyer, but she had no money to pay him properly. My lawyer just buried her in paperwork, and she drowned. The DNA test was the key. The judge ordered Derek to take it. Result: 99.97% probability of paternity. Ethan was his son. I petitioned to strip Lauren of parental rights. Not out of malice, but because I saw she was no mother. She'd never been a mother. To her, Ethan was a tool, a trophy, a way to keep Derek. The judge, an elderly woman with tired eyes, read the case, looked at Lauren, and said, "Mrs. Michaels, you knowingly deceived your husband for 12 years. You used him as a financial resource and as a babysitter for a child fathered by another man. You exposed this child to the risk of emotional trauma. I am granting temporary custody of Ethan to Mr. Michaels, as the only parent who has shown care for the child throughout his life. You are granted supervised visitation once a week. Once you are back on your feet, we will revisit this decision. Lauren tried to appeal, but failed. Derek was declared the father and ordered to pay child support. But since he was unemployed, after the scandal, no one would hire him. The amount was minimal. He had to pay me, Ethan's guardian, every month. $500 a month to the man whose life he'd destroyed. The irony. Emily got full custody of their kids and decent child support, collected from Derek by bailiffs. He owed everyone. 6 months passed. Ethan is in 2nd grade now. He lives with me. We do homework together, play video games together, go fishing on weekends. He calls me dad, and I am his dad. Not by blood, but by love. And that love didn't go away when I learned the truth. It grew stronger, because now I know, he's innocent. The only innocent person in this whole story. Sometimes I have nightmares. I wake up in a cold sweat and go to his room. Watch him sleep, hugging his stuffed dinosaur. And I think, what would have happened to him if I hadn't found out the truth? What if they'd carried out their plan and taken him? Lauren calls once a week. Video chats with Ethan. He misses his mom, but he's used to her getting treatment in another city. That's how I explained it. Someday, when he's older, I'll tell him the truth. But not now. Let childhood be childhood. I heard Lauren lives in Ohio with a distant relative. Works at Starbucks. Drinks. I saw her photo on social media. She's aged 20 years and 6 months. Sometimes I feel a pang of pity. Then I remember those messages where she called me a naive dear, and the pity fades. Derek is officially bankrupt, lives with his mother, drives for Uber, pays child support to me and Emily. Owes everyone. I thought the worst was over. I thought I'd been through hell and come out clean. I was wrong. 2 weeks ago, I was sitting in my office, going through old files. I stumbled upon the DNA test my parents took. Out of curiosity, I logged into the services website. New matches pop up sometimes as databases expand. I opened my profile, and froze. In the Relatives Found section, a new name appeared, Virginia Wilson. Probability of relation. 99.97%. My biological mother. I always knew I was adopted. My parents, Martha and Robert, took me from an orphanage when I was 3 months old. They were wonderful people, I loved them, and I never searched for my biological parents. I didn't need to. I had a mom and dad. And now, 38 years later, the system found a match. I look at the photo. A woman, 62, gray hair, kind eyes, wrinkles around her eyes. Something about her face seems vaguely familiar, but I can't place it. I message her through the site. Just, hello, my name is Jake, I think we're related. She replies within an hour. We video call. She's crying, tells me she had me at 19, was a drug addict, couldn't raise me. Then she got clean, got married, had 2 more children. She searched for me her whole life, but closed adoption records blocked her. We talk for hours. She lives in Pennsylvania, 3 hours from me. Her husband, my biological father, died of cancer 10 years ago. I have 2 brothers. What are their names? I ask. Michael and Derek, she replies. Michael lives in Chicago, he's a lawyer. And Derek recently got divorced, he's going through a hard time. He's an architect, but he lost his job. Something snaps inside my chest. Derek? I repeat. Derek Wilson? The architect from Cleveland? Yes. She smiles through her tears. Do you know him? I'm silent. The world contracts to a point. The ringing in my ears returns. I'm back in that night when I learned about Ethan. Virginia, I say quietly. Derek is the man my wife cheated on me with. He's the father of my adopted son. I destroyed his career. He pays me child support. She falls silent. I see tears streaming down her face. She doesn't know what to say. We say goodbye. I promise to call back. I sit in my chair until morning. I run through every detail in my head. My wife got pregnant by my brother. I raised my nephew as my son. I destroyed a brother who didn't know I was his brother. Guilt? No, not a drop. He knew he was sleeping with another man's wife. He knew he was deceiving his own wife. He participated in this plan for 12 years. That we turned out to be brothers is just a monstrous irony of fate, not an excuse. I pick up my phone. Text Derek. For the first time in 6 months. We need to talk. It's important. Come to Virginia's tomorrow at 3. He replies within a minute. How do you know my mother? I don't answer. Virginia's house sits on the edge of a small Pennsylvania town. An old farmhouse, white siding, a big porch with a swing. I arrive first. Virginia meets me on the porch. We hug. Strange, hugging a stranger who gave you life. She smells like apple pie and old perfume. I searched for you for so long, she whispers. You have no idea. At 3 o'clock, a beat-up pickup truck pulls up. Derek gets out. He's thinner, unshaven, looks 50. He approaches the porch and freezes when he sees me. You? His eyes widen. What the hell are you doing here? Derek. Virginia steps forward. Come inside. We need to talk. We sit in the kitchen. Virginia pours tea. Her hands shake. Derek, she begins, your brother. Michael. You have another brother. Derek looks at her, then at me. What? Jake is your brother. The baby I gave up for adoption 38 years ago. I found him through a DNA test. He's your blood. Derek stares at me. His face changes. Disbelief, then shock, then horror. You, he whispers. You're my brother? I slept with my brother's wife? I had a child with my brother's wife? Yes, I reply evenly. And now you pay child support to your brother for raising your son, who is also your nephew. He covers his face with his hands. His shoulders shake. He's crying. I've never seen a man cry like that. I didn't know, he mumbles. I swear, I didn't know. And if you had known? I ask. If you'd known I was your brother, would you have stopped sleeping with my wife? Would you have stopped planning to steal my family? He's silent. He can't answer. You'd have kept going, I say. Because you're selfish. You've always been selfish. And now you'll live with this knowledge. Every day, when you transfer that child support, remember, you're paying your brother for screwing his wife. I stand up. Goodbye, brother. I leave. Virginia is crying. Derek sits at the table, head in his hands. A week has passed. I'm sitting on the porch of my house in Westwood Hills. In front of me is the lawn where Ethan plays with our new dog, a golden retriever named Max. Ethan laughs, runs, falls in the grass. He's happy. He knows nothing. Virginia comes to visit twice a week. She helps around the house, plays with Ethan, bakes her famous apple pie. We're trying to make up for lost time. I don't hold a grudge against her. She was young and lost. She gave me life, and she's the only one in this whole story who came out with clean hands. Derek sent me a message yesterday. Short. I'm sorry. I'm not asking for forgiveness. But I'm asking for a chance to know Ethan. He's my son. I haven't replied. I don't know what to do. Ethan's too young to understand such things. But someday he'll grow up. And he'll have to learn the truth. That his father is my brother. That his mother used everyone around her. That his family is a tangle of lies, incest, and betrayal. How will I tell him? How will I look him in the eye? My therapist says, don't think about that now. Right now, he's just a kid. Be his father. Everything else can wait. I'm trying. Sometimes, late at night, I sit in my office and look at the 3 volumes of Lauren and Derek's chat logs, which I retrieved from the Courier. They sit on my shelf, a reminder. A trophy. A curse. I won. I destroyed them. But when I look at Ethan, I know, the real battle is still ahead. The battle to ensure this boy grows up normal, despite the madness he was born into. And I will win that battle. Whatever it takes.